Hello everybody, my name is Rebecca Koenig and today I'm going to talk to you about active, passive, and exiting systems. So to start, passive systems are also known as prevention systems. Passive systems are used to contain and prohibit fires from spreading. These types of systems are considered passive because once these elements are implemented, they create what is known as a controlled fire. Some examples of passive systems include fire and smoke barriers and partition, which would be walls, floors and ceilings, which would be considered horizontal assemblies, windows and doors, which are known as opening protectives, fire stops, draft stops, and dampers, which are known as through penetration protectives, and then you've got wall coverings, finished floor materials, and upholstered pieces that also can implement as passive systems. Some examples of passive systems are going to be shown here in a commercial setting. On the left-hand side, you can see a fire-rated opening protective. This is usually a door or a view window, and unlike wall and floor ceiling assemblies that are assigned a fire resistance rating, door assemblies are assigned a fire protection rating. You'll also notice here on the left, you've got the fire-rated horizontal assemblies, which is going to be your floor and your ceiling. Here's that fire-rated opening protective, and then here's your fire-rated partition, which is going to be a sort of glazing that's installed within a hollow aluminum frame. Over on the left or the right-hand side, you've got another example of your fire-rated horizontal assemblies. So your carpeted floor here and then your ceiling tiles above would be considered as passive systems. You've also got another example of a fire-rated partition, and then you've got a fire-rated opening protective again here. These fire window frames must be rated to create the required fire protection. Most rated glazing is installed in hollow steel frames as mentioned, and the ratings for these systems can range anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours. Again, another example of the passive systems is shown here. On the left-hand side, you've got an opening protective, which is done in a commercial setting. These are examples of a fire-rated door. So you've got the steel frame door, which is going to help prevent the spread of a fire. And then you'll also notice down below the concrete flooring, which is a non-combustible item and will not burn. On your right-hand side, you've got an example of your fire-rated windows. Most of these glazings are going to be installed in a hollow steel frame, as we mentioned. And the frames that are around the window are also rated. Usually the rating for these will range anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours, and that's just really going to be dependent upon how old the building or the frame is. Now going into active systems. Active systems are used to assist in a fire emergency. These active systems are a group of systems that require some amount of action or motion in order to work against a fire. Some examples of those would include detection systems, which are going to be your fire detectors, fire alarms, and then your communication systems. You've also got your extinguishing and suppression systems, which are going to be your fire extinguishers, your hoses, and then most importantly, your automatic sprinkler systems. And then you've got emergency lighting, which is considered an active system as well. Examples here on the left and the right are going of active systems. Really the best way to protect occupants in a building from the dangers of a fire is to know that there is a fire as early as possible. Also known as initiating systems, detection systems are meant to recognize the first signs of a fire. First example is shown here, which is on your left, as a manual fire alarm. That's usually the first instance where somebody will help the occupants realize that there's some type of danger happening in the building. And then you've got your fire detectors, which are up above. These are going to sense the fire and sound an alarm, which again is going to allow the occupants some time to evacuate the building should they need to. Again, over on your right-hand side, you've got some examples of a suppression systems. These suppression systems, such as fire extinguishers, are meant to be used by the building occupant. The systems are usually service mounted like you see here on this column, and they may not protrude more than 4 inches into a path of travel so that they don't interfere with ADA regulations. Another quick example is going to be that fire detector that you can see on that top left, and same thing, that's just going to be an example of an active system that is used to notify the occupants that there is some type of danger causing them the need to evacuate. Some interior examples of active systems are shown here. On the left, you've got 2 examples of a fire extinguisher. In a commercial setting, it's important to know that these fire extinguishers are required every 75 feet for sprinklered buildings and then every 50 feet for unsprinkler buildings. In this case, this is an unsprinkler building, so these fire extinguishers are located no more than 50 feet from each other. Another quick example is going to be that fire alarm that's right there by that exit door. Just a really good example of an active system. Going over to the right-hand side, you've got your automatic sprinkler systems showcased here on top of these, mounted to the ceiling. The automatic sprinkler systems are pretty invaluable to the containment of a fire. These active systems, known as the automatic sprinkler systems, aid in containing the fire. And in a commercial setting, the typical distance between these sprinkler heads ranges from 12 to roughly 15 feet. And you'll notice here that the sprinklers shown are known as pendant sprinkler heads. There's quite a few different types. Again, with your fire detector over on the left-hand side, and then once more with your emergency lighting that's mounted up here on the right-hand side of that wall. That emergency lighting is something that would be activated in the instance that a fire alarm would go off. This is in case the building is going to lose power. This allows for ease of movement and means of egress throughout the building to ensure a safe exit for the building occupants. Now going into the exiting systems. Exiting systems are the elements of a space or building that assist and direct occupants to a safe place. So these are rather important in the time of evacuation. Exiting system examples are going to include your means of egress, of course, which is going to be your corridors, your stairwells, and then your ADA compliant ramps. And then you've also got your exit communication systems, which are going to be your signage, and then your audible and visual communication. Some examples of exiting systems are shown here. On the left-hand side, you've got an exit access corridor with plenty of signage that you can see down the hallway. Exit access corridors are corridors that lead to an exit or an exit stairwell. So if you travel down the path of this hallway here, this corridor here, and exit to your left, on your left-hand side is going to be an exit stairwell that you would use to safely exit the building in the time of emergency. The rating on the corridor within a building depends on whether the building is sprinklered, of course. You'll notice right here the building is sprinklered. And in most commercial settings with an occupant load over 30, a 1-hour corridor fire resistance rating is typically required for buildings without a sprinkler system. This one is sprinklered. On your right-hand side, you've got an example of the exit system, which is going to be your signage here. You'll notice in most commercial settings, this exit signage is going to be well lit, backlit, so that it's easy for people to see in the time of an emergency should the lights go out. A variety of signs are required by the codes in the means of egress. Exit signs are typically required wherever a floor or space has more than 2 exits. And these exits must be installed. These exits must be installed at the doors of all stair enclosures, exit passageways, and horizontal exits on every floor, exactly as you're seeing right here. Some additional examples of your exiting systems are going to be shown here as well. On the left, you've got an ADA compliant ramp, which in a commercial setting, an ADA compliant means of egress is a key component. It really is. In general, ramps are used wherever there is a change in elevation and accessibility is required. So you'll notice to the left right here is a set of stairs. Even though the stairs are just 2 steps, this still has to be, because they're a change in the inclination, there still has to be this ADA accessible ramp here. And then on your right-hand side, you've got your stairwell with your signage here. This signage that you're showing on the left is going to be to let the person know that this is going to be an exit access stairwell here. And then your one on the right-hand side right here is going to let the occupant know that this is going to be another means of exit here. These types of stairs that are shown here are the most common type of stair used within a commercial application. It's known as a flight of stairs. It's required to be a minimum of 36 inches wide, and each flight of stairs extending no more than 12 feet, which is shown here as well. Again, additional signage, this is going to be denoting where you are in the building and where you're going to be traveling to once you exit into this exit access stairwell. So overall, passive, active, and exiting systems they're really important to understand, and it's important to understand why these safeguards are put into place. Without them, the safety and well-being of all individuals working and interacting within a commercial environment would be placed in danger in event of emergency. And so I hope that this helps you understand passive, active, and exiting systems. Thank you so much for watching.